Now, our brains are always neuroplastic. They are always willing to change. But you think about somebody starting neurofeedback at 67. They have had 67 years to ingrain deep neural pathways versus a 5-year-old, they've only had 5 years to ingrain neural pathways. So if we can teach their brain healthier patterns to start, now their brain gets to grow up around those incredibly healthy, amazing patterns.
Because like people think that meditation, you shutting your brain off. You don't. Their brains still go like 120 miles an hour. But your body is more shut down.
You can't be heavily abusing drugs and alcohol and think that neurofeedback is going to fix that. However, if somebody goes and intentionally gets clean, gets sober, starts to kind of be aware that they have an addiction, neurofeedback can 100% help reduce the rates of relapse.
Welcome to Mastering the Inner and Outer Wealth with your host, Jarek Tadla, where we dive deep into the art of building freedom from the inside out. Together, we'll uncover practical strategies, real-life success stories, and expert insights to help you master your inner wealth and create the life you've always wanted. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Mastering the Inner Wealth and Outer Wealth podcast. Today I have Rachel and Angie. And the reason, guys, I'm so excited about it, because I think it's the first podcast we're going to have somebody who is really dedicated to what I want to do, the mental health. And the most important is the brain health. And when I met you, when I ran into you, like it was a year ago, right? It was 6 months ago, a year ago?
October.
In October. Yeah. And the brain mapping, it just completely changed my life. And when you put this stuff on me, and then you just knew everything about me. And I'm like, I really thought that I was like played by Raul. Like you cannot know all this stuff about me. Like how? And you just read my brain. It was weird at the beginning, but I was like sold on it immediately. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being South Florida. So let's start the most important. And by the way, guys, don't laugh because, I didn't know which one is which. I always call them Rachel and Angie. So now I know Rachel, Angie. So now I know for a fact, guys. So just so you know.
One and the same.
One and the same. Rachel, I'm going to start with you. How does the whole thing started? It's how... Yeah. I mean, it makes so much impact on my life. Guys, I'm still excited about having them. Just sorry, guys. I am excited. How the hell, how did it happen? How did it come out? How does it
Absolutely. Well, similar to you, right? My story started with a lot of struggle and a lot of suffering. I was growing up, I had a lovely family unit. There wasn't a lot of trauma or anything disastrous going on in my life. And from a young age, I just started living a very impulsive lifestyle. I remember middle school starting to smoke weed, high school abusing really hard drugs and alcohol. I ended up getting arrested more than the one time. And I ended up getting into some situations where I was in jail like multiple times. And finally, I remember, I'll never forget just like being on my hands and knees in this jail cell and thinking like, God, if you can just get me out of this situation, like I'll get my life together. I'll figure it out. And then I wouldn't, the same just horrible decisions would continue to happen. And I had tried medication, I had tried counseling, and nothing was moving me forward. And so I ended up looking for other ways to address mental health. And I'm so grateful that my parents ended up finding out about brain mapping and neurofeedback. I went and did a brain map, and the results essentially showed that I had a pattern for bipolar disorder. Okay. So we're like, okay, this makes some sense, right? So I had information. I felt validated for the first time ever. But then the question is, what are we going to do about that? I ended up doing a whole series of neurofeedback therapy, which is what you're doing now. And at the end of my treatment, took about 3 to 4 months, I did a second brain map.
How did you find out about the treatment?
It was just by happenstance, because you're right, brain mapping and neurofeedback, it's not a typically like first line of defense when it comes to mental health. My mom had found out about it from another friend, and her daughter was doing it for depression. So she's like, maybe my daughter should try this. Just was by luck. Mm-hmm. I did a second brain map. There wasn't one clinical pattern for bipolar. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, for the first time ever, just feeling in control of my emotions, in control of my decisions, in control of my mood. And I was like, this is so awesome. I want more people to be able to be exposed to this type of therapy. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Didn't know how I would figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful. The last 10 years, I've just been building and growing. And now we have one of the largest neurofeedback practices in the country. And just getting to serve, we've served over 17,000 people, ranging depression, anxiety, trauma. We work with a ton of first responders.
Me, all of it, all
And we
of
were
it.
talking right before this, right? You're
Yeah.
like, wow, I don't even know what you do, but I'm sleeping. Like that never gets old hearing that. We love being able to have that mark and help people just because, people have so much to give. We have to be freed up from symptoms so that we can be the best versions of ourselves.
It was funny when you guys did the testing on me in New York. It's like you truly knew everything about me, and I'm like, how is it possible? And then it's like, how do you sleep at night? You don't sleep at night. I'm like, how do you know this stuff? Like you sleeping with the music. I'm like, how? Like you guys knew, and and I think it was you, Angie, because then you were talking about the whole treatment, and you said that this is the mental health is the only industry that gives
Doesn't
the
measure the
medicine,
organ.
doesn't measure the organ, but yet they feed you with the medicine.
That's right.
How did you start? Like, how did you
Yeah.
your story? I want to hear your story.
Yes. So my story, it's funny, Rachel and I are very similar. We also kind of
Yes, you are.
We
Now
very
I know who is
similar.
who. Now I know who is who.
We're also very different. Rachel grew up kind of a rule breaker. I was probably more of a rule follower. But honestly, very apathetic when I was younger, probably very reckless in that I just didn't care about a lot of things. I, wasn't caring in school, wasn't caring in life, probably wasting the assets that I had, a very functioning brain. When I was 19, I suffered a skull fracture, traumatic
How
brain
did you
injury.
call your brain? The biggest asset. How did you call that? Your brain? The asset? How did you call it?
Oh, my best asset.
The best asset.
Your
Yes.
best asset
Yes.
is your brain.
Yes.
Not even a question. The best asset that you have. I would say as a culture, we focus so heavily neck down. We want to eat healthy. We want to work out. All those things are fantastic.
If you don't have it going on here,
You
you're
have
not gonna get your
You have
body through
nothing.
the gym. You're not gonna get your body to eat
even
healthy.
a question.
You're gonna sedate with drug, alcohol, with food, with everything else.
If you're not in control of your brain, which is Rachel, has a story of bipolar. She was not in control of her brain. When I was 19, I had a skull fracture brain injury, and that left me in a walker. That left me with a lot of different cognitive issues happening. I was no longer in control, right? I had a somewhat functioning body. I had a very unfunctioning brain. And it's funny that actually our moms are very similar, that our moms were crunchy before it was cool to be crunchy. So my mom, heard from a neurosurgeon, this might be as good as it's gonna get. And she said, absolutely not. We do not accept that. That is an answer. 19 in a walker, possibly can't go back to college was not the answer. So she was looking for other kind of more Eastern medicine, more natural medicine ways to heal me. And I went through a lot of different things, a lot of different types of treatment. And even down the road, finding neurofeedback was another form of healing for me. But I went through a bunch of treatment, ended up being able to walk again, doing a lot of different things, went through my undergrad, went through grad school, and then I had a professor that I was close with in my grad program who realized pretty early on that I was a lot more neuro-based, a lot more brain-based than more feeling and emotion and things like that. So he introduced me to a woman who introduced me to Rachel, who is my twin flame. And we, then, kind of started this journey of having impact and of wanting to honestly change the world through a neurological viewpoint. And we do believe in all the other kind of software updates on the brain, software updates on a computer, that we believe in eating healthy and working out and doing everything. We also believe that you have to address the hardware, which is the brain, right? Like we said, your best asset. So if you're ignoring your brain and not optimizing that asset, you will never be fully optimized.
So because it's like I've been struggling because let's say everybody talks about the gym, right?
Yeah.
So everybody talks about the gym, and you go to the gym and you have like so many machines.
Yeah.
Hundreds of hundreds. So any gym you go in, right?
Yes.
And then you can also work out. You have a swimming, like I'm the Ironman, so swimming, biking, running, all the outdoor activities. They're all like physical activities, the gym, right? Yeah. But yet nobody talks about the brain gym, the mind gym. That's the most important thing. And nobody talks about, what do you do? Well, now I can say I do brain mapping. But this is one of the tools, that meditate, cold plunge, prayer, positive thinking, what I mean? It's like, but there's so little. And like, look at all the books. It's like brain health, mind health, like all the stuff that because it's like, I knew it starts here because I couldn't believe it that I accomplished so much in my life. And at the age of 48, I hit the bottom of the bottom. And it took me so long to climb, but to drop, it was like that. And I couldn't, I'm getting goosebumps. I couldn't believe it. Like, what the hell happened to me? Like I'm laying in bed, I can't get out of the bed, and I don't know what, you know what I mean? But I neglected my brain for so long. That's why, that's my mission. That's why, that's right now, it's like, because if this happened to me, I have no reason to complain about. I didn't have any accidents. I didn't have any, I mean, I don't have a bipolar. I have a 10 polar. I mean, I have like literally, guys, I have 20 personalities. Yeah. It depends, but I use them. I know how to use them now. So, how because I want to reach, I want you guys to reach 8 billion people, because that thing makes so much impact on me, and I didn't even know. I have my sleeping routine, like I told you before. I have my sleeping routine, and then I have a call with you, and it's, how is your sleep? And I'm like, good lately. And then it's like, yeah, we add something to your night routine, so it helped me enormously. Because how do we reach out to all those people that go through depression, goes through anxiety, goes through, and because first is denial, right? I mean, denial, that they don't think that's they don't have to live like that. You have your parents that said, no, we're not doing it. Yeah. So how do we get through people and just, how we can help people to bring the awareness to this brain health?
I think about, thinking back to your brain, right? And when we did your brain map, which you got voluntold to do, which I appreciate, that we just kind of showed up and said, hey, we're going to map your brain. And thank goodness you jumped in and said, all right, I guess. I think about your brain, right? You said, I went through all these things and I was achieving so much. Your brain is a high-powered vehicle, right? However, you weren't doing any maintenance on it. So even if you're driving around a Ferrari, right, you have a beautiful, high-powered, meant-to-go fast vehicle. If you never give it any maintenance, at some point it's going to burn out, right? At some point it's going to be left on empty. And that's what you experienced, right? That then you're like, I hit rock bottom so hard. How did that happen? You had been driving that vehicle so hard for so long. At some point it was just kind of done.
But Angie, the society tells you it's a burnout. It's a depression. This is they don't talk, that's a result, right? I mean, isn't it? That's a result. The depression, anxiety.
Unfortunately, mental health is typically reactive, whereas now health in general is starting to be a little bit more proactive. How do I stay fit? How do I stay strong? How do I have good endurance? And a lot of it too is we want to look good, feel good type of thing. But to your point, how do we reach more people? Things like this, people don't know what they don't know. Education. Most people don't know that you can actually train and get higher levels of adaptability, flexibility, and strength neurologically. That's right. And so a lot of it's too just about helping people understand when there's options when it comes to mental health. Most people, when they think mental health, we think counseling and medication.
Yes, that's it. That's what I'm doing, the Mental Man, the awareness march on March 21st. Because I want to bring the stigma. Because when you say mental health, people are like, whoa. That's why I use the word brain health, mind health. Because people if you say mental, this is.
There's still a stigma. There's still there's nothing wrong with me.
And then if I go to therapy, then something. We all human. It's a normal thing. So, so help me out bring the mental stigma.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I agree with Rachel that it really is about just bringing awareness, right? That it should just be a part of the conversation. That when we think of mental health, yes, there's medication. That's an option, one option. Yes, there's counseling. That's one option. Hey, there's also brain mapping and neurofeedback. And we're going to get into exactly what is brain mapping, what is neurofeedback. I feel like we've been talking about it kind of a high level. I'm sure people are listening going, but wait, what the heck is it? But that should be a part of the conversation, that people should at least know that, like you said, the mental gym. I like how you said that how do we work out? How do we flex that organ? How do we
because if you guys think about the gym, I mean, look at how many options we have in and out. Yeah. But for the mind, for the brain gym, there's nothing out there. Yeah. I have books. I buy books. I Google all the time. It's like there must be more. Yeah. Because I see how important, because I neglected for so many years, is beyond. And that's why I end up when I end up.
That's right.
But anybody I talk to, until I talk to you, anybody, it's a stage in life. It's mental. You gotta be positive. You gotta work out. Shut up. It's like, dude, I can't get out of the bed.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah, it wasn't a mind over matter situation, that, and sometimes we think that, right? That I should just be able, if I'm mentally tough enough, I'll just be able to overcome it. I should just be able to think my way out of it. And the reality is our thoughts are not controlling as much as we think that they are, right? That we do believe in positive affirmation, but at the end of the day, can you wake up tomorrow and forget how to walk? Can you just erase that neurological pattern in your brain? No way, right? That is so deeply ingrained neurological pattern muscle memory. We have to teach the brain to do something different. That is what neurofeedback is. Neurofeedback is creating new neurological patterns, ingraining these new pathways to teach your brain to do something differently.
So if I was a 10-year-old kid, Rachel, explain it to me. How does it work?
Yes.
I'm 10 years old.
10 years old.
Because when we start using those words,
Yes,
like
make it
people,
basic.
Let's make it basic. I'm 10 years old kid, and it's like, how does it work?
So I would think about training a dog, right? Like any kid could sit here and say, okay, yeah, if I had a little puppy, I would ask them the question, how would you teach a puppy how to sit if you had the ability to train one, right? Well, hopefully the kid would say, well, I would get treats and then I would start to practice having him sit. Neurofeedback is not like the gym where you have to continue going to the gym to maintain a level of fitness. Neurofeedback and brain health in our lens is a lot more like a learned behavior. I'm going to go learn a second language. I'm going to go learn how to play golf. I'm going to go learn how to do a new activity or something like that. And you do it enough times to where you create a new neurological highway that your brain's not going to forget, like Angie was talking about. So that's how I would talk about it. I would talk about it from a learned behavior. You teach a dog utilizing treats over and over and over again how to sit, where then ultimately you can remove that treat and you still have a well-trained, well-behaved dog because they have had that conditioning, right? Mm-hmm. Your brain is the same. If you reward the brain over and over and over again how to do something accurately or optimal, then your brain's not going to forget how to do that. Mm-hmm. Brains don't want to be dysfunctional. We typically, as a society, move away from wanting to feel anxious, depressed, manic. It's not a comfortable place for us. And so when a brain has a level of health, it doesn't like to go back to a state of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we love about brain mapping is it's data driven, right? In a day and age where it's AI and everything is metrics. Like I love the fact that we have Oura rings. We have these new Prenuvo test. We have blood work. Everybody's measuring things, right? I love that. Why are we not measuring the activity of the brain to give us the answers? And so, like any assessment, 10-year-olds do assessments all day long. I would explain, we're going to do an assessment so we can understand kind of where you're at from a functioning standpoint. Then with that, we're going to train the puppy how to have wonderful behavior by utilizing reward. So in less 10-year-old terms, that's what we start off with is that QEEG brain map. It's a completely non-invasive assessment, just like you did with a group of people staring at you. Yeah. With that activity, we see patterns of anxiety.
Like you guys were talking, I'm sorry interrupting. You guys were talking, I'm like, don't say too much. You know too much. It's like, there are people here. Yeah. There are people
laying
here.
Your brain bare for everyone.
And I think people think like, well, a brain map, how would they know that I had that trauma? How would they know that I struggle with irritability?
You knew about my depressions and you didn't know anything about me.
Yeah.
You knew about it.
Our brains yield patterns, right? And so it doesn't matter the state that we're in. It doesn't mean that every day you wake up depressed. It doesn't mean that. I
truly thought when you guys did it, I thought that you've been told everything about me.
Yeah. That somebody had spilled the beans on the back end.
Yeah.
Wizards.
No, honestly, your brain, like Rachel just said, even though you're not asleep right now, it doesn't mean that your brain doesn't have sleep patterns. You're just not utilizing them at this moment. Even though you might not be in a depressive state right now, it doesn't mean that your brain does not have the ability to flex and go into that. So we could map somebody on the best day they've had in a while or a kind of crummy day. I'm going to see those patterns either way as they are already neurologically ingrained patterns in your brain.
Think about a car. I always love this analogy. So my car has like eco mode, comfort mode, sport mode, super sport mode, versus maybe another car just has one or two modes or none at all, or another car has 50 other modes that I don't even know about. That doesn't mean that I'm shifted into sport mode all the time, but it does mean that my vehicle has that option. We're looking at all of these patterns just like at a glance, if that makes sense, so that we then can understand the person that we're sitting across from.
I mean, I had a surgery 3 weeks ago, so I was put down, and my body went to complete shock. And you said, how can you forget to walk? I did. I couldn't walk, and I was conscious. I was like, what is going on? Like, my legs are gone. You know what I mean? Because I was completely sedated.
Yeah.
And then for 2-3 weeks, I wasn't putting the what is it?
Your headset, your
headsets on.
Yeah, neurofeedback.
And just in 2 days, the last 2 days. And by the way, I didn't know you're in Florida. You see, I think I was like, oh, accountability is coming. They're coming to visit me. They're coming to visit
Jarek,
me.
you haven't done your sessions yet.
And in the last 2 days, and I woke up today, and I was like, wow. I look at the ring. I got the best score because I was after the surgery. I scored on the oral 47 minutes sleep,
Rough.
an hour 12 minutes sleep. My oral was in 30s, and today the first time I got 90, just after 2 days. I still don't know how it works, but freaking works. I love it.
Anesthesia is also rough on your brain. It kind of looks like a mini brain injury when we have anesthesia. Now, what an amazing, medical miracle that we're able to be put under, that we can have, procedures if we need them, things like that. But that can be a little bit rough on your brain, but especially because you have such a fast neurological pattern that you have a lot of fast wave activity in your brain, and then you add in some anesthesia. I bet those 2 sessions of neurofeedback that you did just kind of pulled it back enough that your brain was able to relax into that place of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I'm still just shocked. Okay, going back to the childhood. So you always were behave. So you were the follower.
I was definitely more of a rule follower.
You were breaking the rules.
I'm still a rule breaker.
Okay, you still are.
Yeah.
Okay. How often do you how often people notice the changes? Do you help people in jail or people with the alcohol with sobriety addictions, or how does that work?
I mean, addiction, absolutely. Addiction is a unique realm in which you can't be heavily abusing drugs and alcohol and think that neurofeedback is going to fix that. However, if somebody goes and intentionally gets clean, gets sober, starts to kind of be aware that they have an addiction, neurofeedback can 100% help reduce the rates of relapse. We used to work in an addiction center, and it was really incredible. After I did about 100 brain maps, I would stop reading the intakes of the people coming in and just look at their brain patterns. I could very accurately guess the exact substance that they were attracted to basis the deficits on their brain map. Yes. We are constantly trying to create a sense of harmony and homeostasis from a neurological standpoint without even thinking about it, right? If you don't have enough beta activity, and beta is the brainwave that allows you to have clean, crisp, sustainable focus, you're going to feel very attracted to coffee and caffeine. Versus why do some other people, which I don't understand those people, that they're like, I can't drink coffee, I'll have panic attacks. They probably already have copious amounts of beta in their brain, right? Other people are really attracted to marijuana, for example. And marijuana typically increases a brainwave called alpha, which allows you to just go into a little bit more of a state of being. So sometimes people smoke weed so that they can just kind of take the edge off or fall asleep at night or get out of their head, because that marijuana increases that brainwave that they don't have enough of. Mm-hmm. So all that to be said, yes, we can help addiction, but we're not going to solve the problem from a behavioral standpoint. So we like to partner with people on that. We're not really working with people in jail per se. That's not the first time someone's asked us that. I think if you were to have a conversation around people getting out of jail and recovering and trying to get their lives together, that could be an amazing population and culture to explore. We're kind of experts when it comes to first responders. So we work heavily with PD, fire, DEA, EMT, stuff like that, which is really cool, right? Because that population, those men and women are typically very anti-therapy. Nope, we're good. We're all set. they are very welcoming to this type of therapy because they don't have to talk about it. They just get to the root. So that's a little bit more of our bread and butter, but it'd be interesting to explore like some convicts. I'd be
I love
excited
how you
about
said,
that.
let's get back to the root.
Yeah.
How do we get back to the root? Because people don't, like you just said it, like, people don't want to talk about it. They want to get to the root. Because a lot of with therapy, we're just putting like, because you don't know if you're a good therapist or not.
Yeah.
There's like a good doctors and bad doctors, right? There's a
Yes.
good attorneys and bad attorneys. You don't know that you have a good therapist. Until you do, you don't have it.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of them, we like put a Band-Aid on all the issues. Because like you, I'm getting good once again. You guys hit a like straight point, like, how important the brain health is. And how do we get to the root? How because when you solve it, like, like I always say, like, open the wound, put a salt in it, and just let
Clean it
it,
out.
you know what I mean? And just like, how does this, explain this to me, like we're getting to the, because something is going on. Like I'm telling you, I'm excited, I'm sorry, because like I don't know how it works, but it works. And if somebody doesn't have a freaking 20 minutes a day, I mean, then for yourself, then you need help. Then you need brain mapping because it's only take 20 minutes. And I'm guilty of it too. I didn't have the time. I always find the excuses.
For sure.
And then when I got into it, I was like, holy shit. And then I want to do 7 times a day. No, that's too much. What is the root? How do we get it to how this goes to the root?
So as Rachel was talking about earlier, so we start with that QEEG. It's a quantitative electroencephalogram. That's the brain map.
No idea what you just said.
It's
I'm
a map.
sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's a map.
I'm
It's a
sorry.
scan. Like an EEG or a CT. No, it's a big word. So it's a scan. We start with that scan, and we can do that from anywhere. This is what's so cool is that we did yours in person. We have a fully remote neurofeedback system. So literally, if somebody is in India, we will ship them equipment, we do the brain map, get on a Zoom with them, and then you have the headset, which the fact that I don't have a headset in my hands is absolutely bananas. But so then you have a headset and it has a lot of little electrodes embedded into it. So when you put on the headset, key component, there is never ever any electrical stimulus going into your brain. No, we're not shocking the brain in any way. Nothing's going in. The electrodes are picking up information, kind of monitoring and reading what the brain is doing. And then the feedback loop of neurofeedback is the electrodes in the headset are going to pick up the electricity. It's going to go into the amplifier. I was going to say, if he can grab it, I'd love to show it. Yes. So the electrodes are going to pick up the electricity. It's going to go into the amplifier, into the software, which you have an app on your phone. So again, it's so user-friendly. And then it's going to be fed back to you. The reward is fed back to you through visual and auditory feedback.
I just want to sell the audience, like, guys, I'm not selling you the product. I'm not. I'm just like, if you care about your brain and you want to change your life, I'm just selling you on you. That's it. All my podcasts, everything, I'm not selling you on the brain mapping. That's not, my mission is, brain health, mental health. This is, to me, it's my mission, it's my vision, because I almost, it's my 1,281 days that I almost commit suicide. So it's everything to me. Yeah. And I see, so whoever's listening, I need you to listen to this, because there's, I know there's a mindset. Mindset is important. Yes. I had the right mindset, and I fucked the shit up. So I need you to guys listen to this, because if there is a way, if there is a tools, if there's a shortcuts, and there's more and more technologies coming in, AI, which I'm gonna ask about AI, I need you to I'm selling you on you, because your kids deserve more, you deserve more, your partner deserve more, your family deserve more, God deserves more, and we here to serve. So that's why I'm sharing. I just want to make sure, because totally. It sounds like a selling pitch, but it's not. I'm selling you on you. I'm sorry. I love what you said. Because it's like you said, like brain is our biggest assets. Like we are the biggest assets, and we just want to do everything, but we don't want to do the most things. So now we have the
so we have our headset. So these are the electrodes that are picking up information. And I love what you asked earlier, like kind of how do we get to the root? This is what I said earlier about software versus hardware. Software updates are more counseling, are more meditation, are more mindset. Are those critical? Absolutely. And if we need a software update on our computer, maybe somebody does just have a mindset problem. They need to change their mindset. Great. However, sometimes we have done all the things. We have checked all the boxes. We've got the mindset. We're working out. We're doing all the things. Why do I still have panic attacks? Why do I still struggle with feelings of anxiety? Why am I still feeling so weighed down with feelings of depression? Then I would say we probably have a hardware issue going on, right? And we have to address the hardware. If we never look at the hardware and we never get into it, we're missing a very major component, right? And you're right. Mental health, psychology, psychiatry is the only field of medicine that we don't measure the organ that we're going to treat. It's absolutely wild to me that we would never go, hey, I think you need appendix surgery, but we're just going to cut you open and see what happens.
We'll
kind of see what happens once we get in there. You would go, please, oh my gosh, don't do that. Let's do a scan first. However, we fill out a 15 questionnaire and we're prescribed medication. Anxiety can come from about 50 different patterns in the brain. We have to know where that's coming from. We have to know what patterns are happening so that we can address appropriately, right? So what happens when Jarek actually has his headset on? So we did a brain map. We created individualized protocols for your brain, as your brain is 100% unique and individual to you. Your protocols can't look like anyone else's protocols because your brain doesn't look like anybody else's brain. So we on the back end as a team create protocols for your brain. That's what we're going to put into the software on the back end. So the app on your phone is going to have all of your protocols. So when you in the morning or at night, whenever you feel like doing your neurofeedback session, when you put on your headset, you log into your app, you click on your protocol, you put on your headset, you're not needing to do anything. As again, this is on that deep neurological level, not your thought-based level, okay? So it's not gonna be about mindset, it's not gonna be about your thoughts, it is about getting into the hardware. So you put on your headset, you turn on your app, maybe today you're watching some kind of an interesting
And that's what I love.
video.
You can pick and choose what you like. So I'm watching the podcast that I want to watch,
right.
while you have Dr. Brian, like you have like all those good guys, like, that I follow. Yeah. And I'm just rewatching those podcasts and
that you would watch anyways.
That I would watch anyway. And
you could watch this podcast.
Yeah.
You could upload this one.
Yeah. And it takes really 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. No. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A drop in the bucket. I mean, you think about how much time is your health worth? How much time is your brain worth? That if it's not worth, an hour and a half a week total, we probably need to check that.
For people to know a little bit on exactly how it works, though, you have the remote control to the experience, right? So that feedback, like Angie was talking about, the podcast will go away. It goes dim. It goes very unclear, and the sound gets disrupted if your brain is not falling within the target thresholds that we're challenging it to. My visual that just came to me is, let's say I'm doing target practice at like a shooting range, right? And I'm really far outside of the target. Well, what am I going to do? Even subconsciously, I'm probably going to move my body a little bit, move my stance, change where I'm pointing, right? Because I'm trying to get to a certain target. That's what your brain is doing. It's making all of these subconscious auto corrections constantly so that it can get continual feedback, so that it can continue watching and hearing the podcast. Because no brain is going to like when the visual and auditory feedback goes away. We get innately frustrated by that as human beings. But I think many people, to your point, they're like, I still don't really understand how it works, but I'm sleeping better. You don't even really have to understand how it works. Just understand that your brain is learning how to optimize its own wave activity. Yeah. So I think that's just for people to understand a little bit more the visual back end. That's what I would highlight.
You were talking about subconscious and conscious mind. I just wrote a question for myself because when you were talking about it, does it have an impact on the subconscious mind?
Both.
Because
I would say it's more of a subconscious learning experience, right? But you can be very conscious within that. So consciously going into your 20-minute session with an intention. You could sit there and get distracted. Your phone rings. You aren't thinking of things you're grateful for. Will it still work? Yes, but you need to be consciously intentional about creating space and curiosity. But really, it is a little bit more of a subconscious learning where you don't have to put in work for your brain to figure this out. We give the example all the time of, because you have kids, of if you move in front of a kiddo watching a TV or a show, they're ultimately going to be like this, right? Because you never taught them how to do that. They have to fill in the visual feedback that they're having in front of them. It will be frustrating for their brain if it can't create that. And so you never taught them that. It's the same thing with that. That's where that subconscious learning comes in.
Okay. What about kids? Like how old the kids has to be in order to?
I would say generally we start at around 5. And then, so 5 is a pretty optimal age, 6, 7, as we want kids, their brains to grow up around healthy patterns, right? Now, our brains are always neuroplastic. They are always willing to change. But you think about somebody starting neurofeedback at 67. They have had 67 years to ingrain deep neural pathways versus a 5-year-old, they've only had 5 years to ingrain neural pathways. So if we can teach their brain healthier patterns to start, now their brain gets to grow up around those incredibly healthy, amazing patterns.
They have less habits.
They have less
like
habits.
For me, it's like a
significantly less habits.
53-year-old man is like,
Yes.
go reprogram this brain now. I mean, it takes time. Yeah. It's not easy because we've been in
We're
it.
set
like,
in our ways.
So like for so many years, and it's funny, like all the traumas and everything that's going on, it just takes years. It takes years. But if there is a shortcut, I will take any shortcut. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, if I don't, but it's not gonna eliminate, right? It's not gonna eliminate the depression. It's not gonna eliminate the anxiety, or what is the result with the?
It depends on the person, and I wouldn't use the word heal, only as I just would say, I have people go from a 10 out of 10. Angie, I have panic attacks every day. I feel crippled by my experience of anxiety to I don't remember what anxiety feels like. I literally have people go from those extremes, right? I could give you 1,000 different examples I'm thinking of a woman who, when she came to me, she could not get on a plane. She couldn't travel. She was literally crippled by travel anxiety to, after 40 sessions of neurofeedback, she flew to China. How incredible is that? I have people who go from, this is my last stitch effort. They usually won't use the word, suicidal ideation or something, but they're like, I don't know what I'll do if this doesn't work, to, I feel like my life has been saved. I don't even think about not being here anymore. So I have people go from those extremes. So, would I say that it's completely eliminated, that their pattern, is completely gone? Possibly not. Rachel went from, a full-blown pattern of bipolar disorder to a brain map that showed absolutely no pattern for bipolar disorder.
And you don't use any medicine, nothing? You never use it? Use it?
I tried medication, and I didn't like the side effects. I also am stubborn by nature. I didn't want to feel reliant on medication my whole life. That felt very...
Are you Taurus?
Sagittarius.
Okay, I'm Taurus. So you said stubborn. So I was like,
I know.
she must be Taurus. Those Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. But yeah, I just didn't, it wasn't for me. Medication, in our opinion, has a time and a place. I personally feel like if you can free somebody up from feeling reliant on a pharmaceutical, that is amazing. And we have so many people. We have visual forms at our offices of empty glass containers where people come, black out their names, and put their empty medication bottles in. And it's really empowering for them, right? So I don't want people to hear that there's not a time and a place for medication. We are definitely pro getting to the root and getting that fixed and healed. And to your point, as an entrepreneur, why are we not doing that proactively? So many entrepreneurs and a lot of our first responders, it's not about, you didn't not like your entrepreneurial life. You loved it. Actually, if anything, you probably got a level of high off of it. It's fast, it's fun, it's busy, it's complicated. You have to figure it out. First responders typically like what they do. What's difficult for them is when they're not on the job. Their marriage is tough. Being present with their kids is tough. Not working is tough, right? And so sometimes it's the really motivated, really successful, really entrepreneurial type of people that even need this most, because what's actually suffering is their personal life, right? And so how do we take care of that then, so you can continue being a boss, continuing to move forward, continuing to make huge impact in the world? And that's another huge piece that we're on, is just being proactive.
When you're proactive also, it's like then you have a presence and you know how to switch from work to, because, like my problem for years was, even though, because, when you're an entrepreneur, you're 24/7. Like my doors don't close. my door at the same time, like my brain don't close. And
Yeah.
when you guys map my brain, you're like, your brain doesn't
no
stop
oscillation.
working. Yeah. So that's why. But again, the stigma is it's a burnout. You know, you're sick of work. You this like, but what happened is truly we're neglecting ourselves. We're neglecting our brain, our mind, and that's what it. And it takes years to realize it, and then we look for all the resources. You know, and I'm against pills, just so you know. Like I'm completely, if it comes to the, you know, the Western medicine, I mean, if I have surgery, it's a different story. When I have a ski accident, it's a different story. But I'm completely against. So, if it comes to mental health, okay, what is like the biggest examples that you guys just help with somebody? Like let's say if somebody's going through, let's say losing a parents or with grieving, because you know it's just then we believe it. Does this help with that as well?
Yeah, actually, we have an amazing woman who we work with in Colorado. She actually came to us originally for anxiety, and she posts about this, you know, online. So she's been super open and transparent with her story, which is very cool. But she came to us originally for anxiety and worked with us for that, and would say that it completely changed and eliminated her anxiety. Incredible. And then she ended up having a son. So she did a couple booster sessions for that. And then actually more recently, her dad passed away of cancer. And so we had her doing a few grief protocols. The incredible thing about the way that her brain has changed is her brain has so much flexibility and plasticity, right? That she has responded so differently to that situation. Not that it wasn't sad, not that it wasn't traumatic, but she will say, who I was 4 years ago and how I would have responded to this situation is drastically different because I am different. My brain has more give. My brain has more flexibility. My brain is more resilient and has the ability to handle this situation completely differently. She didn't shut down. She didn't, you know, kind of regress because her brain was able to do that. Think about a muscle, right? That if you take an athlete and a non-athlete, yeah, and they both tear their ACL, who's going to recover faster? I would say the athlete, because they've been working towards that. They've been working their muscles for so long so that they're more resilient. Your brain is no different. That if you've been flexing that organ and working that muscle for so long and then something happens, it has more resiliency. So, and I could give 50 different examples of that, but she popped into the top of my head because she's been really open and transparent with her story.
So how do we talk to people about it? Because like I have no problem. I don't, because you know, I don't want to be kind of like a, you know, advocate, but like I don't have a problem. I don't need this shit. Like, well, if somebody's saying that, I know, okay, then you need this shit. That's it. Let's start with that. But it's like a lot of people are not ready to hear the brain health, the brain gym, the mental, that there's some other tools. How do we make people aware of this stuff, that the brain health is important?
I would say optimization is a huge reframe. So we work with a lot of, now I'm not going to paint people in a corner, but it's typically men, like very high functioning men.
We are.
And you guys are the perfect ones.
Yeah.
We're good. And so,
And I'm the reason I know. I know.
I'm joking, but all jokes aside, this is kind of a population that we work with. And sometimes it's the wife that then brings their very high functioning man into our doors, and they're like, you know.
That's why Jessica was a little when we were talking about the coach. She's like, I mean, I got it. Like, he does this. I was like, yeah, you know, he was fine. And then he went like from one extreme to another. Like, babe, it's like, we're not in the therapy session here. We're not
Throwing under the bus.
Yes.
And of course, we have therapists printed on our forehead, so that doesn't help. But what I would challenge it with is like, are you lacking goals? Like, as a very successful, motivated human being, you're telling me you're lacking goals. It could be, I want to be able to be more dialed in, focus, not feel tired during the day, fall asleep faster, hold more space for my kids when I have the 2 hours at the end of a day, right? Those are very, in my opinion, clear and concise and simple goals. And so our job, right, is to work with the person to develop, what are your goals? Because it doesn't have to be, you're depressed, you're not sleeping well, but there's, you know, a hint of goal setting and optimization that we can use then to open the conversation. Because sometimes to be able to open a door for transparency and vulnerability, you have to start with what feels digestible for that person. And so that's where we'll definitely start with people that might be a little skeptical or feeling pushback, or they're like, I'm all set. We just goal set and can kind of stroke that part of the conversation. That opens up the door, kind of like yourself, to say, hey, wow, maybe my sleep isn't as good as it could be. And wow, if I could sleep better, get more deep sleep, stay in REM sleep longer, how much more effective could I be as a business owner, a leader, an entrepreneur, a husband during the day? That's a game changer, right?
Rachel, for me, it was like I told you, like I cannot stop thinking. It sucks.
It's exhausting.
It's, you know what I mean? And what happened is the inner dialogue, it's constantly, you know what I mean? And sometimes because I'm already trained enough that, you know, like we're not going this way, we're going this way. But my brain never shut up. It just doesn't.
No.
It just goes. And then, you know, when I need to sleep, my body's telling me you tired. You know, but my brain is just going like, yeah, we got to think that it's like if somebody get in my brain, it's like, dude, screw you, man. I don't want to be you. and that's where, like, when I run into you, like I was sold after the first sentence, and I didn't know that it's gonna make such a big impact on me. What about people that try it? Because you for sure have people that try it like that shit doesn't work. I want to hear the bad stories.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, so I've been doing neurofeedback for 10 years. And generally the only times that people have started neurofeedback and it has not been as effective as we thought it was going to be is when there are other things going on metabolically, right? I had somebody with undiagnosed Lyme's disease, somebody with mold infestation in the brain, somebody with some really significant hormone issues. Now, a lot of times we can actually see that on the brain map, okay? So the brain map kind of waves these red flags that are saying, hey, I think there's some other inflammation or something going on. Now, we can recommend, hey, I think you need to go get a hormone panel done. Sometimes people are like, I don't really want to do that yet. Okay, then we might be pushing up against something else metabolically while we're doing neurofeedback. But at the end of the day, neurofeedback, it's not like medication. It's not that it either pairs with your, chemical makeup or it doesn't, and then we need to try something else.
It's not like medication.
It's not like medication. It's literally teaching your brain at its most basic of neurological level for humans. Not Jarek, not Angie, not Rachel, for human beings. So if neurofeedback is not working, there is something else going on that we need to discover, because it's literally operant conditioning of the brain, and that is how the human brain learns.
I would ask the question, like, do you believe every person has the ability to learn another language if they put in the effort?
Honestly, fuck you.
So if I were to right now...
If I could learn another language, then anybody can learn. Seriously.
But it takes a lot of time and effort to learn that, right? So the other biggest barrier to success would truly be compliancy of the client.
Yes.
We can't force you to put that headband on and do your session.
You didn't
force you to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But I'm being honest right now. If it wasn't for the calls, and then my office was like, it's like, Jarek, they're charging you every day. I mean, every week that you skip. Like, skip what? Like, I didn't even know we're supposed to have those sessions. I didn't even know. And I because what happened is, me, dumbass, I was busy.
Yeah.
But that is a barrier to success.
So I got the whole thing. I got the whole setup. I got everything, and my office did everything ready, and it's like I completely forgot about it.
No, we do weekly check-in calls. So
yes,
that is something that we do.
You did, but I canceled those weekly calls.
But you're giving the example of sometimes why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's
so it doesn't work if you don't use it. Like,
Yeah. If you don't go to the gym doesn't magically make you fit.
Yeah.
You meet us halfway, we meet you halfway. That can be a barrier to success. If the people get to the end of the first month and they did 2 sessions, they're like, I don't notice any change.
The great thing is, though, once you are very, very much so intentional about it, you knock out your sessions. Once you learn a new language, you don't tend to forget it. Like, you kind of can work that skill. I did brain training when I was 17 years old. I don't train my brain. I haven't trained my brain really since. I'm actually going to start training with our remote program to work on some memory. I just had another baby, so just kind of re-regulate some hormones and stuff like that. But I'm never training my brain because I'm like, ooh, feeling a little bipolar again. No, because my brain has that highway already. So if people can digest that this is a short short-term truly solution if you're really dedicated on the front end.
What is short term?
For a long-term success.
6 to 9 months. People with our remote program, people generally do 3 to 4 times a week, 20-minute sessions.
Believe
for
me, I'm
6
going to be
months.
longer. I'm a slow learner.
Yeah. And now I know that you're trying to skip sessions. I feel like I'm going to text you every day and be like, you do your session today?
Yeah.
And so, but honestly, you're right. That really busy, high-powered people sometimes are like, okay, where do I put my time, right? Where do I put my effort? I also then challenge with, what is your mental health worth? What is your brain health worth, right? With things like Alzheimer's, dementia on the rise, what is your neurological health worth?
That was my next question.
Yeah.
How does that help with that, with those dementia?
I would say it is more on the preventative side. And now I'm not saying that neurofeedback is a preventative for dementia or Alzheimer's, as there are a lot of other things that feed into that. But we think about our brain like anything else. If we are not utilizing it, if we are not increasing plasticity and creating new patterns, our brain at some point starts to atrophy, right? That if you break your arm and get a cast on it and you get the cast taken off, you have this shriveled little weird arm because the muscle hasn't been being used, so it starts to atrophy. As we get older, we're not increasing plasticity the same, right? Well, I read a lot. Well, you already know how to read. So unless you're learning how to read in Spanish, which you don't already know Spanish, you're not increasing plasticity.
Angie, I remember a lot more. Mm-hmm. I read quicker and I have a lot more memory. I wasn't dummy in school. I'm not saying I was like, but I'm I have my own, patterns. But I really, and of course, and I want to give a credit for everything I do, because like Jessica's like, Jarek, you do everything. Yeah. Just eliminate
You're putting
something.
multiple things in
and
place.
I'm like, I'm not eliminating shit. It works. But even the reading, like, it's like, oh my gee, like I really remember stuff. You know what I mean? And what other stuff you guys suggest for the brain health, mind gym, brain gym? What other stuff beside that?
I would say for you, though, too, the reason why you might be retaining information more is you have a really fast brain, like Angie was talking about, which is also why you have a tendency to maybe ruminate and overthink, and your brain never shuts up. But you don't have a lot of slower activity, which helps with that retention of information. Mm-hmm. So as we're teaching your brain to be able to shift into that, now all of a sudden you're like, wow, I read that, and my brain actually stored that information, because we increase some slower alpha, some theta. Now all of a sudden,
I also thank you. Meditation also, I go deeper in meditation too.
I can imagine.
Oh, yes.
I can imagine.
Because like people think that meditation, you shutting your brain off. You don't. The brain still go like 120 miles an hour.
100%.
You know what I mean? But your body is more shut down. Yeah. So.
And it's not about, and I would never want someone to hear it's about taking a fast brain and making it slow. No. It's about giving you control of the vehicle that you're driving, right? If you're driving a Ferrari, we can't take a Ferrari and make it a Kia. That's not what we're doing. We're giving you control of the Ferrari versus the Ferrari controlling you. So ultimately, you've always been driving a Ferrari. Now you're driving that Ferrari. That Ferrari does not have control over you.
Okay, so that was that, because I was skeptical. Because you knew so much about me, right? Mm-hmm. And putting like, the test and everything else. And then I was like, I also like me. I like my brain.
Yeah.
What if
I thrive off of this?
What if the shit's gonna rewire and let's say I'm gonna be stupid? But I tell you, it was thought in my head.
You are not the only person. A lot of people feel like, is this going to change my personality?
We have cops that their job is to not be empathetic. Oh my gosh. So if you start to be able to feel and then you go on a triple homicide call, I hope you don't feel exactly the same feelings that family does. And that's not what we're doing. No. However, most first responders have trouble showing up emotionally for their family. Your brain should be as flexible as a light switch. You turn it on, you turn it off whenever you want to.
That's what you said when you were talking to me. I like that. Dude, like, Jarek, we gotta teach your brain to turn on and turn off. It can't
always be on. It can't always be off. You have to have control of that.
Not ever taking away somebody's beautiful, amazing, God-given strengths. Ever.
Right, because we're the only one. There's 8 billion people in this world, and we have the only one. It's a one brain, and it's like, and we gotta like nurture it, like, put the right food, put everything, I mean, everything. I mean, I think like I completely agree with you. I mean, this is the biggest assets we have.
Yes.
I mean, our whole body, but brain, because like people talk enough about the mind, the mind health and the brain health, because it's like, yeah, I gotta eat well. I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna eat sugar. I'm gonna work out. But like the decision, it truly happens here. It really, and then after a while, we do it subconsciously. It just, it's like when I stopped drinking, I was like, I could, like, what do you mean? I'm going to go to the party, I'm not going to drink? Now I can't imagine after, like, what do you mean? Go to the party and drink? That was dumb. Like now my whole body is taking over. My brain doesn't have to do the work. Do you know what I mean? Like my subconscious mind is like, no, this doesn't serve me. This doesn't serve me. What about food-wise? What is good for brain and brain health? Like, give me some other shortcuts. I want to.
You had asked, kind of what are other things that we can do. First off, we are very big in whole foods, right? One ingredient foods that when we talk about, fillers and dyes and, all these other things, they are creating inflammation in our brains and inflammation in our bodies. So we're not going to, give a very specific like, plant-based versus carnivore versus like, that's not about it. It's about whole foods. So if you can eat whole foods as much as possible, is that always the case? No, sometimes we're beholden to being out and different things like that. But if 90% of the time we're eating whole foods, you are treating your body right. Now, there's very specific, walnuts are a brain food, beets are a brain food, kind of these brain superfoods that are giving your brain extra nutrients. But whole foods in general across the board are your best option.
What about supplements?
We like to supplement basis brain maps so we can, look at specific brain patterns and say, ooh, you could really, utilize some magnesium glycinate, for example. Actually, you could if you don't need to take that for your sleep.
I do it.
Yeah.
Magnesium glycinate. Obviously a good healthy fat. So omegas is really good for brain specific. Vitamin D, in our opinion, is actually really important because a lot of us are vitamin D deficient. Even though you might live in Florida and get a lot of sun, it's super important.
Yes.
There's a lot of neurotropics that are coming out, which are honestly fantastic, like mushrooms in different blends. We're doing some studies with some different brands right now on pre and post neurotropics, which is super fun to just really actually see how they change the brain function. Peptides are another huge, I know that's not a supplement, but peptides are a huge talk right now. I'm actually going to start peptides here soon, and I can't wait to talk about them because there's a lot of brain health peptides. Honestly, the list is endless of things that you could do to do these updates, but I'd say those are some of my favorites.
And sometimes people are just taking supplements willy-nilly, right? I heard this is good. I heard this is good. Doing a brain map and finding out, taking supplements that your brain already is creating a lot of, you're just going to kind of pee it out. So the best thing you could do is to do a brain map, see what your brain actually is deficient in, and then take supplements based off of what your body, same thing with doing, some blood work and finding out what your body actually could benefit from.
Cool. Yeah. Girls, thank you. Guys, hope this was helpful. Again, I'm not selling you on anything. I'm just selling you on your own health, brain health, and everything else. When people can find you and how can we get in touch?
Definitely go follow us on Braincode Centers, Instagram. We give a lot of tangibles, different biohacking exercises that you can do as well. But follow us if you're interested for your kid, husband, family member, whatever. Definitely do a one-on-one consultation with us and braincodecenters.com.
Yeah. Our consultations are 100% free. So we never want it to cost someone anything to actually find out a little bit more information and what your options are. So we love just offering that information at cost.
And guys, remember, brain is your biggest asset. Take care of it.
Mic drop.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Leave your comments and subscribe for more insights on mastering the inner and outer wealth.